I'm sure a lot of guitar players will agree with me when I say one of the best parts of being a guitar player is all of the cool gear. Who's with me? Well, the past year, I think I've acquired more guitar gear than I ever have in a single year. There's a reason for that. I'll share that in the video. But in celebration of the end of 2023, as we step into 2024, I've compiled my top 10 list of my favorite guitar gear acquisitions of the past year. Why don't you join me? Hey there, I'm Dan, the self-proclaimed Lonely Rocker. Thank you so much for joining me. So yeah, 2023, I think I acquired more guitar gear than I ever have in a single year. Now, guitar has been an important part of this channel right from the beginning, but I used to be a bit more general home studio. And in the latter half of 2022, I decided to niche down a little bit and focus on guitar pretty much full time with some minor exceptions. So 2023 was really the first full year that this was a dedicated guitar channel, and it's probably the reason why I acquired more guitar gear than I ever have in a single year. Now, some of this gear I paid for myself, some of it I did acquire through reviews, but each piece of gear that you're going to see has lived on and has gotten some use here in my studio since I acquired it. So that's really the stipulation for my top 10 list. Anyways, let's dive into it. By the way, I've created a playlist. I've called it Gear 2023. I'll put that in the description. Now, all the products I'm going to show you today, if there's a standalone video that I created this year, it's going to be in that playlist. There's a couple of exceptions. So if you want to see a deeper dive on most of the products that you'll see today, check the playlist and there will be a video for that. Now, to start off, I've got a special mention. Now, it's not uncommon in top lists to have an honorable mention. That's generally something that didn't quite make the list, but was worthy of a mention. In this case, a special mention, I didn't really know where to slot it, because for one, it doesn't make any sound. Number two, I didn't make a video about it, but it's really integral when I'm recording my tube amps. Now, it's no secret on this channel that I'm recording my amps direct. I never really hook them up to cabs anymore or mic them, so I'm doing everything DI. And as I got deeper into DI recording of tube amps, I realized I wanted the most faithful analog translation of that amplifier into my DAW. Now, there's some great devices on the market that offer digital components. So they've got like virtual preamps, cab IR loaders, even, digital EQs and things like that. But I just wanted a direct analog translation of my amplifiers. And to achieve that, I got the Sir reactive load. Now, there's the cab IR version of this where you can load cab IRs, but I'm a studio guitar player. I don't need to load my cab IRs on here. I don't need an all-in-one. Now, if you're playing live, that might be a different story. But this is a solid device. It's quite large, and there's really nothing in it. I mean, the thing that really confused me about this is the thing that I love about it, is that it virtually has no features. There's just a DI level, and that's it. But it's got solid components in here, and it is a true analog translation of my tube head, which is exactly what I wanted. If I need EQs, if I need any preamp simulation, cab IRs and all that, I can do that in my DAW. But anytime I'm recording a tube amp, unless I mention otherwise, the Sir reactive load has handled a load, and I wanted to give it a special mention because really it belongs next to virtually any video where I've recorded a tube amplifier. So the special mention to start our list is the Sir reactive load. All right, so the first official entry on my top 10 list of favorite gear acquisitions of 2023 is the Boss ME90. Now, this really, I think for me, was a real gateway device in terms of amp modelers, because in 2023, I really started opening my eyes to amp modelers. I'm more traditional with real amplifiers, but I've been finding a place for amp modelers here in my studio, and we'll get more and more into that as we get deeper into my list. But the ME90 is really a solid gateway into the world of amp modelers and multi-effects, and also as a recording hub for your home studio. If you're just getting started and you're on a limited budget, you're gonna get 10 of Boss's AIRD amps in here, plus 60 Boss effects. If you like playing with pedals, well, it's gonna be very familiar to you because you've got all the knobs on board here, but it's also a digital device when you can connect it to your computer via USB, and then you get access to Boss Tone Studio, which will give you some additional functionality. You can do some minor alterations to the signal chain. There are some limitations in comparisons to some more expensive units, but if you are on a fixed budget and you need some digital amps, you need effects, and you need a simple USB recording interface, you get all of that for about, what, $350 US. It's a really, really great device. In fact, when I first got it, it became the front end of my studio for a few months until I did eventually upgrade, but that doesn't take anything away from the ME90. I mean, you've even got an onboard expression pedal. You get a lot of bang for the buck, a lot of great tones, a lot of great effects, and I really enjoyed using the ME90, which is why it sits at number 10 on my list. I explored in 2023 was learning more about modern high gain tones. Now I come from a classic rock, 70s progressive rock kind of stylings, but I do like heavy guitar sounds, and I've really been embracing modern high gain tones. It's a completely different animal. So I had to acquire a few things to help me get there. And one of the things I used to get there is the amplifier sitting right behind me, and that's the EVH 5150 Iconic. Now I did a shootout with two amplifiers that were sort of budget friendly, full-size high-gain amplifiers, and the 5150 Iconic won out. It's a great amplifier for the money. It's sort of the import version of EVH's 5150, but it was designed by the original designer of the PV 5150, and that would be Mr. James Brown. But you've got a multi-channel amp. You've got everything from clean tones, crunch tones, up to super high-gain tones. You've got a lot of different modifiers on the amplifier. One thing I like about amplifiers is to have some versatility. You're rarely going to see me with like a single-channel amplifier with like no features. A lot of the commonality with the amps that I have is that they're multi-channel. They've got sort of different features on it. And the 5150 slid right into that. It's an 80-watt all-tube head, and it sits at number 9. And number 8 on my list, I have the Empress FX Para EQ Mark II. Now, a parametric EQ, I think, is an essential tool when shaping tone. Now, if you've got an amp modeler that doesn't have a parametric EQ built in, something like this can really help you dial out harsh frequencies, because really a parametric EQ, what it does, it lets you zone into very specific frequencies. Unlike a multi-band EQ that has predefined frequencies, this allows you to sweep around and identify the frequencies that you want to adjust. You can change the width of that correction, that's called the Q, and then you can cut it or you can boost it. So it's a very flexible EQ. Now, some higher end amp modelers, for example, will have a parametric EQ built in, but for your amplifier, for example, you can put this through the send return loop of your amp, or you can put it through the face of your amplifier, because there's also a boost here. But with the EQ features on board, you can boost your amp in different ways. You can lead with very specific frequencies, or like I said, if you put it into the loop of your amp, you can carve out very specific harshness, which you just couldn't do with a standard predefined EQ. And Empress FX makes some very high quality pedals, and this one is no exception, which is why it sits on my list at number 8. At number 7, I've got a pedal from a brand that's quickly become one of my favorites. That's IK Multimedia. Man, they make some really, really cool products, and I featured a lot from them in 2023, and a few of those products have made it onto this list. But this time we're looking at the X-Time, part of the X Gear series of pedals. 2022, I first introduced X Space, which is the reverb pedal, and X Time being their delay pedal, all part of the X Gear lineup. And these pedals are really, really cool, because what I like about them, they're physical pedals, but with the USB connection, you can connect it to your computer, and you can upload the presets that you save on the pedals into the Amplitude plugin. So if you create something cool in the room and you want to have it in your computer, well, you just zap it over. And in terms of recording, that means I can record the guitar without the effects and apply the exact same effects in my DAW. Now, you can do the reverse. If you create something cool on the desktop and you want to zap it over to the pedal so you can take it with you, well, you just connect it up via USB and you can move those presets over to the physical pedals. Now, the X-Time being a delay pedal, I love using a physical delay pedal, especially for a guitar player. It's all timing based, sitting in front of an amp, getting those delays working just right. It's really great to have that pedal right in front of you, just to be able to find those nuances and get it just right. And like I said, I save that as a preset and I zap it over to the Amplitude plugin and add it in my mix later on. So anyways, the X Gear lineup is really fantastic. There's a couple other pedals in this lineup. We've seen this before, but in 2023, the X-Time delay, something that became a fixture here in my studio, and it sits comfortably at number 7. So at number 6, I've got some more pedals, two pedals that I featured together. And these two pedals have a special place in my heart because certain theme within this list, you'll see there's a lot of digital products that are making their way into products that I use all the time. Now, at my core, I'm very traditional. I love real amplifiers. I just like the old school way of doing things, but I can't deny the modern conveniences of digital. But we can't forget where we came from. And products like Colortone. This is a great company based in Australia, sent over the Lo-Fi Delay and the Spring Reverb 2. These are very analog sounding effects. I mean, they're analog pedals, but very traditional vintage sounding. Now, what I did with these pedals when I featured them in the video, it's actually probably one of my favorite videos that I made all year, is I treated these like instruments. I recorded my guitars direct into my DAW, then I looped the signal out through the pedals, and then in real time, I sort of performed with the pedals by adjusting the dials and coming up with really unique effects that really only existed once. And if I blew it, that effect was gone forever. I had to go back and do it all over again. And I know that sounds a bit inconvenient, but if we think sort of old school studio days, a lot of experimentation that went on in studios, a lot of the greatest moments in rock history were created kind of on the fly. They happened once and then they survived on record for all the time. So it's something that I wanted to try, and I utilized these pedals to achieve that, and they certainly did not disappoint. Yeah, we lose the modern convenience of being able to edit it or change it, but if you capture that magical performance, that effect will never exist again. It's yours and yours alone. And these pedals really just shone in that capacity, but you can also use them as regular pedals as well. Anyways, Colortone, number 6 on my list. By the way, if you are enjoying this video, it really helps. Simply clicking that like button lets the algorithm know that you're enjoying this video, really helps the channel, and I really appreciate that. At number 5 on my list is another product from IK Multimedia. Now, late in 2022, they dropped Tonex on us, and that really, I think, started a revolution. I mean, people are still talking about Tonex. Now, it started as an application or as a plugin that you can run in your DAW. If you've got reamping capabilities, you can actually capture your own amplifier and create what's called tone models, where you can capture the amp itself. You can do an amp and cab or a pedal, amp and a cab. If you're capturing the amps by themselves, you can mix and match all the different cabinets that come with Tonex. You can share them on tone.net. It's really an ecosystem for amp and tone connoisseurs. Well, into 2023, the whole plan for Tonex really came into focus with the Tonex pedal. Suddenly, all of those great tones that you've got on your computer, you can now take them with you on the Tonex pedal. Now, true to form with all of IK's pedals, this is exceptionally well built, sexy looking pedal, but carrying all of those great tones that you've created on the desktop, now suddenly you can take this with you to your gigs and your jam. You can incorporate this with other multi-effects pedals, but I really think it's just sort of the tip of the iceberg when it comes to what IK Multimedia is capable of doing. I mean, one of the complaints about this is that it doesn't really have any effects other than a little bit of reverb and that, but IK's got Amplitude, they've got all of the great tones in Tonex. You have to assume something great is coming. And considering this is first generation, they really knocked it out of the park. People are still talking about Tonex, and I'm talking about guys that are using fractals and helix. They find a place for the Tonex because for the money, I think you get the best value amp models to dollars, if that's a thing. But Tonex is a great device. You can run it through another multi-effects pedal. If it's got a send and return, it becomes another block. It's just a great device. And like I said, all those great tones that you've created on the desktop, you can take it with you on the Tonex pedal, which is the reason why this sits at number 5 on my list. At number 4 on my list is another entry from Empress Effects with the Empress Heavy Menace. Now, I have to mention that Empress is Canadian and so is this Lonely Rocker, so great to have some good Canadian content here on the list. Now, Empress makes some great effects. We saw that with the Para EQ Mark II, and the same applies to the Heavy Menace. Now, in the video that I did about this, I talked about a distortion pedal shootout video I did where I had 6 pedals, and the original version of this pedal, the Empress Heavy, ended up about number 2 on my list. And it was a wrong that I had to right because the pedal that I chose, I ended up not using it ever. But got to make amends when they released the Heavy Menace, and this is an exceptional distortion pedal. And I'll tell you, I don't really use distortion pedals, but this has a wide range of tones from sort of crunch and overdrive to the heaviest of distortion tones. And there's a lot of great features on this pedal. One of my favorite features is the sweepable mid-range on the built-in EQ. Much like a parametric EQ where you can actually choose the frequencies, you've got that capability with the mid-range, so you can choose the specific frequency that you want to adjust, and then you can cut it or boost it. So that gives you a lot of flexibility in really shaping that mid-range. If you want to tighten up the bottom end, you've also got the low end adjustment here, and plus this weight knob here. You've also got a built-in gate. It's a very, very flexible distortion pedal that gives you a wide range of tones, and it sits solidly on my list at number 4. So I hinted early on in this video that this has kind of become the year of amp modelers for me. Well, we're into the top 3, and already at number 3, a piece of gear that I just acquired just over a month ago shot up to number 3 on my list, and that is my latest amp modeler, and that's the Fractal FM9 Turbo. I wanted to get something more pro level, and I actually did a video where I threw a question out to you guys, got a lot of recommendations, and I considered all of the information I got from you guys, and ultimately the one I chose was the Fractal FM9. Now for me, a modeler is not going to replace my amplifiers. I wanted something that could coexist with my amplifiers because I do reamping. I can incorporate the effects from the modeler using a real amplifier. Of course, I need something with great tones. The Fractal's got plenty of that, but I wanted something with a lot of I/O and a form factor that would suit my studio, and the FM9 just ticked all of the boxes. It sits on my desk, it fits perfectly. The fact that it is a floor model just means I have all of those foot switches that are accessible with these as well, so I get good access to the presets and scenes and things like that, tempos. But I love the tones on there. I mean, that really surprised me. I was a little bit hesitant about that, but absolutely love the tones I'm getting out of it. And I like how I can incorporate my real amplifiers by setting up a loop and running my amp into the modeler. It becomes, in essence, like a block within the signal chain in the FM9, and you can position it, after boosts and overdrives, and you can put your reverbs and delays after, create those custom signal chains utilizing a real amplifier. So I can do combinations of amp models and real amplifiers, plus with all the I/O that it has, I think I have 3 different loops in there, so I could introduce the Tonix pedal in there. If I want to bring in an analog pedal, I have enough I/O there, and it's also become my USB audio interface, and it's been performing quite well as that as well. So very quickly, for something that I acquired maybe a month or so before I did this video, it was already up to number 3. So before I hit the top 2, I actually have an honorable mention. We heard about my special mention, but now we actually have an honorable mention. And the reason this is an honorable mention and didn't make the list is because technically it's not guitar gear, but the video I did for it, it became what I called an inspiration machine. Now, guitar players are creatures of habit. And if you write songs like I do, looking for different ways to come up with, different ideas, well, sometimes we need to look a little bit outside of the norm. And to do that, I decided I wanted to get an analog synthesizer, and this is the Uno Synth Pro X from who else? IK Multimedia. I started taking an interest in analog synthesizers because that sound is you hear it a lot in progressive rock of the 70s and early 80s. Obviously, something like this is used far differently these days. You hear it in electronic music and that, but I wanted something different. Now, as a guitar player, all these knobs and switches are very familiar, so we have fun with those. But it was just an opportunity to create different rhythms and different sounds that could inspire me to create cool guitar parts and bass parts, and that's exactly what I did in the video for this. So technically, it's not guitar gear, but this has really complemented me as a guitar player. So if you're interested in shaping different sounds and just looking even to layer, just come up with some really cool ideas, well, the UnoSynth Pro X was bang up for me. Really enjoyed using it and has earned an honorable mention in a list of guitar gear and synthesizer. Who knew? All right, it's time to dive into the top two. Now, I mentioned earlier that one of the things that I pursued this year was modern high gain tones. And I was really into it and I was trying to do it the best I could with the equipment that I had. But I was missing a few things. Now, we talked about the 5150 Iconic. That actually came a little bit later. But one of the things that I was lacking was a modern spec guitar. Now, I tried to take one of my old guitars. I had Les Paul Studio and I put a Seymour Duncan Nazgul pickup in there. But as good as it sounded, that guitar's got issues and it was just really frustrating. So I realized if I wanted to get into modern high gain sounds, I needed to have a modern spec guitar. So with the help of my good friends at Long McQuade, which I'll give a friendly mention here on my list, a lot of the gear that I got to try out this year came from those guys. One of the guys at the store who's featured a lot on this channel created a short list for me, which I featured 3 different guitars. And the winner from that list, an ultra guitar that I acquired, was the Schecter C1 SLS Elite. This guitar really surprised me. I was a bit of a snob when it came to guitars. I mean, all my main guitars are American-made guitars. I've got Gibson, I've got Suhr. But this being the first serious import guitar that I own, this Schecter comes from their Korean factory. So it's sort of their high-end imports. But what a fabulous guitar this is. I love everything about this guitar except for these. I mentioned it in the review. I haven't replaced them yet, but that's something I plan to do in the new year. But aside from that, you got Fishman Fluence Moderns in here, so multi-voiced pickups. So you got that really modern flavor, plus you have a passive mode, they kind of call it, plus 3-position here, so you can get a lot of different tones. You got the hip shot bridge, you got ebony board on here, stainless steel frets, compensated nut. Just really, really beautiful guitar. This multi-ply one-piece body here. This neck is absolutely fantastic, really, really fast. And what's amazing is that while I got this to be sort of my high-gain modern guitar, it just gives you a really wide range of tones. And you'll notice a lot of the videos in this list, you saw this guitar, I just found I was reaching for it more and more. I mean, I've got guitars I've had for years that I absolutely love, and this guitar really found a place here in my studio and on my channel. And well-deserved at number 2 is the Schecter C1 SLS Elite. And finally, we've arrived at number 1. Now, my pursuit of high gain actually started with this device. It actually caused me to buy the Schecter because once I got that, it's an amplifier. That's when I realized I needed a guitar. It was a whole domino thing. Anyways, it's too heavy to carry here, but I'll get you some good B-roll shots of that. That is the Engel Powerball 2. Absolutely love that amplifier. Now, funny enough, I featured a lot in many videos, but I actually haven't done a standalone video for it. I've been trying to figure out what to do, and I just got busy, but we're definitely going to see it in this coming year because the thing about that amplifier, it's not what I expected. You know, I wanted a pure high gain amplifier. Now I got a 100-watt powerhouse, 4-channel, beautiful clean channel, good crunch channel and 2 high gain channels. You got 2 master outputs. You've got mid boost, a lot of ways to modify the different channels, 2 separate EQs on there. Just a lot of features packed into one amplifier. Now this year, Angle did release their new special edition, Founders Edition amplifier, and it's all of the rage. But you can't forget that Angle's got some great amplifiers in their lineup that they still make, and the Powerball 2 is definitely one of those amplifiers. It's quickly became my favorite amp here in my studio and offered some things that I didn't quite expect. Now, I definitely can get those high gain tones, but I do get a bit more than that. But I love the sounds that I'm getting out of the Angle Powerball 2. It's been a fixture in a lot of the videos that I've done since. When I need an amplifier, I find myself reaching to that one more than any of my other amplifiers. Not to say I don't enjoy playing some of the other amps, but it's a really, really great amplifier. It's well built and proudly sits on my list of the top 10 gear of 2023 that I acquired at number 1. So there's my top 10 list, but what am I looking forward to in 2024? Now, I'm sure as I dive deeper and deeper into this guitar-oriented YouTube channel, certainly looking forward to getting my hands on more and more gear. But for me, I'm very focused on efficiency. One thing I have to say, the more gear I acquire, it starts to become a little bit confusing. Now I have friends of mine, have walls of amplifiers, and not to say, give me a little bit of time, we'll probably see this wall fill up a little bit too. But this is the first year where I started to feel a little bit overwhelmed. Now, this channel keeps me really busy, but I do have a life as well. I'm married, I have kids, I have responsibilities, so I can't spend 24 hours a day in my studio as much as I would like to. So I'm always looking at ways to create a more efficient process. I want to be able to sample different devices, different pedals, whether different effects within the model or different amplifiers. And if I have to take 2-3 hours each time to set it up, messy cables and that, I just find I lose interest really quickly. And what I've noticed over the last few months, especially after I got the amp modeler, I found myself using the amp modeler a lot, and it scared me. I actually had to stop for a second and remember that I'm pursuing tones and I'm pursuing process. I want to share that with you guys. So one thing that I'm really hyper focused on for the new year is anything that I bring in here, I'm still very aware about the process, the recording process, especially because that's what I do here. I want to create efficiencies. I want to be able to sample different things and find the right sound, for the right job or the right moment. And, it does take time to experiment. And if you're always hooking things up and disconnecting things and creating a big mess, because that often happens in studios, it's very frustrating and it really, really slows me down. So something I'm really looking forward to in the new year is continuing working on the efficiencies that I have here in my studio. I want to hear lots of great tones. I want to share a lot of that with you, share my experiences, share the process and techniques with you. And for me to do that effectively, I need to be efficient. So it's definitely something I'm going to look to in the new year with gear that I get here. If I want to use it, I have to be able to plug it in quickly, and I just want it functioning properly here in the studio. It's a really important part of being efficient. I think that goes without saying with any business. So that's definitely something I'm looking forward to in 2024. And I want to experience as many tones as possible and share that all with you. So that's my hopes for 2024. Anyways, I want to thank all of you that spent time with me in 2023. I really had a blast this year, and I'm looking forward to so much more in 24. Keep those comments coming. If you have any questions, any thoughts, any things that you'd like to see in the new year, please let me know in the comments. But if you did enjoy this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell. Remember, I've got a playlist with all of the videos, where I actually did videos for the products that you saw in the top 10 list. I'm going to put it over here for you to check out, so make sure to check it out. And remember, you don't need a band to rock and roll. And I'll catch you in the next one.